Well, make it 9 out of a possible 12 points for Steven Gerrard in charge of Aston Villa, and an end to Brendan Rodgers' impressive 6 wins out of 6 with Swansea, Liverpool, and Leicester, as Aston Villa triumph on a day when it might be snowing outside the Parlour. And to celebrate the victory, I'm pulling out the really good stuff. This is a Bowmore 15 from the Isla region of Scotland. It starts out a bit rough, lots of peat, but then it smooths out as the game goes. But I had one hand on it. That's control. Control is having one hand on it. Well, luckily I poured some before we started. So let's celebrate and review Aston Villa 2, Leicester City 1. Well, that had to be one of the most ragged first 45 minutes I've seen combined by two teams in a long, long time, punctuated by the VAR reversal at the very end, bringing into questions again the laws of the game and their interpretation and what makes sense under the circumstances. But I'm not going to debate that right now. All that matters is that with the win, Aston Villa have caught Leicester, are now in the top half of the table, which will give them belief and encouragement and maybe a little bit more security, not having to worry what's happening at the other end of the table. And its protege, Gerrard, defeating mentor Brendan Rodgers, whose 6-game winning streak at Aston Villa has now come to an end. All in all, a lot of positives again. Let's go. The Holy Trinity, the 3 big issues or moments that defined Villa 2, Leicester 1, starting with the statistical tale. I've chucked in the usual expected goals, but also second half XG, in addition to big chances, pass success, and duels. Yes, duels, DUELS 1. Thank you for the feedback on that, by the way. I hate grammar missteps, but look at the XG, 2.21 to 94 overall. But in the second half, what is Steven Gerrard saying in the dressing room at halftime? Because whatever it is, it's working. 1.40 in the second half alone. 3 big chances for Villa, pass success that was heavily impacted by a very untidy first 45 minutes for both teams, and 69 to 52 in those duels won. Just reflecting on that second half XG number for a moment, because have you noticed over the last 3 or so pre-match media availabilities that Steven Gerrard has made a point of bringing up the load limits, increasing the load, stressing players with a higher load, which is leading to some minor injuries. And loads are the amount of physical stress the players are being put under, measured by their Holter monitors. And I only say this because prior to the Leicester game, Steven Gerrard made a point of saying that the intensity at training was not as high as it probably should have been, which was the first time since he's arrived that he's slightly undermined the previous regime. You have to say that since Steven Gerrard has arrived, that Aston Villa look like they are growing into or getting stronger as games carry on. And some of their goals, many of which have been decisive, are coming late in the second half. And that speaks to physical preparations, but also a mental sharpness that comes along with that. And so unless you're at Bodymore Heath and can tell the difference before and after, it's very hard to know for sure. But maybe there was a bit of a routine creeping in at Bodymore Heath. And you have to say, on the evidence, that the physical side of the squad definitely looks like it's progressing. Honorable mention, Villa came from behind to win. Now, the 1-0 goal was slightly dubious because, first of all, Marvelous Nakamba and Matty Cash got in each other's way when it seemed like they kind of had the situation well in hand. Now, take nothing away from Harvey Barnes, who had Matt Cash's number, more on that later, but in the situation of the goal as well, Emi Martinez's starting position and his angles are all wrong here, and you know how I feel about Emi Martinez. But my mate, who I work with, is an ex-pro goalkeeper and now a goalkeeping coach, and he's absolutely right about this. There is way too much space at the far post and too much ground for Emi Martinez to cover. But beyond that, Aston Villa can say to themselves, we can reverse score lines. We have the physical and the mental capacity to overcome, and that is huge. Honorable mention number 2. What a save Emi Martinez makes in minute 75 to keep the score at 2-1 and maybe make up for the poor positioning on the 1-0 goal. This speaks so much to Emi Martinez's character as a street fighter, because he gets up there with very little reaction time and then he claws and he scrapes and scratches to keep it out of his goal. And that is also a reflection of how Aston Villa is starting to evolve in its own identity. And I'm sure you've heard this cliche before. In fact, the late Brian Clough said it all the time. Your football club should take on the personality of its manager. And all we as fans ask for is for a team that grafts, has passion and desire, and puts it all out there for the crest. And we're starting to see that. Not to mention the fact that Gerrard has unlocked the beast mode setting on Marvelous Nakamba, and he's getting the very most out of two players who were already pretty good to start with, Ollie Watkins and John McGinn. And honorable mention number 3, cash recovery. As I've said, Matt Cash spent a lot of that first half chasing Harvey Barnes' shadow. I mean, he was really duped a few times, and we'll get more into that a little bit later on, why that right side of Villa's was so exposed, it seems. But in the second half, things changed. And not only did it feel like Matt Cash was not under as much pressure on that side, but he was really doing a lot to cover ground and getting into supporting positions on the attacking side. And we have a player here who has energy, who has pace, who has desire. He has it all. What will happen if he could tidy up the crossing and the finishing? If he gets those two things right, look out! Big issue or moment number 3, move McGinn up. This game, to me, beautifully illustrated why I think John McGinn would be better served to be playing up alongside or just behind Ollie Watkins in one of those two number 10 roles. And one of the reasons why Matt Cash was having such a difficult time against Harvey Barnes was because McGinn was not providing the support on that side of the park that, say, Louise was giving Ashley Young on the other side. And Leicester was going to that left-hand side of theirs over and over again. And the other thing that popped into my mind here is, what if Steven Gerrard does go in for Kamara at Rangers or brings in another central midfielder with Morgan Sanson looking like he's starting to get back to full fitness? There's going to be a lot of players in that midfield, and somebody very good will not be playing. So imagine removing some of the defensive responsibilities from John McGinn, some of that grafting, and replacing that with grafting further forward and pressing. Because I believe John McGinn is truly an attacking player at heart, but he's been cast as a midfielder at Aston Villa because we've been so short of options, frankly, throughout his time here. And I've been saying over the last several weeks, in fact, since the beginning of the show, where Aston Villa breaks down is in transitional moments when they just don't appear to be fluid on the ball. And John McGinn provided two gorgeous examples of unlocking defenders and recognizing great runs within 3 minutes of each other, not to mention crossing the ball that leads to the goal. And also, how about the one in the second half on the right touchline where he beats a guy 3 times, gets to the byline and scores? The whistle had long gone. It was too loud to hear. And also, I'm not saying that John McGinn didn't have a good performance in midfield, because he and his two partners in midfield had very good numbers. I mean, not only were McGinn's passing success numbers good, but look at 4 chances created. Luis not so good on the passing, but 7 recoveries. And Marvelous Nakamba again in the 90s on his pass success rate, in addition to the 13 recoveries. The first beautifully set up chance came in the 67th minute, and it was a through ball where he read the run of Watkins as it was happening, and the two connected almost telepathically. And quite frankly, that's the kind of instinctive ball without thought that creates goals. And really, Watkins should have made it 3-1 there. And then just 3 minutes later, he picks out the right pass for Jacob Ramsey. And you just wonder if young Ramsey should have taken a little touch there first before trying to smash it. Maybe you also invite a rash challenge from behind and earn a penalty. But no matter what, McGinn sees those passes and makes the right decision at the right moment. And that is what we've kind of been missing. Not to mention that he scores goals. He set up the 2-1 goal because it was his cross from the corner. And he can also press, but he can also hold the ball up in the front third. And although Buendia has those kinds of passes that unlock defenders in him, he's still a step behind for me in terms of possession, and he loses the ball an awful lot, which is becoming a bit of a worry. The second big issue or moment, Villa couldn't kill it. And the next evolution of Aston Villa Football Club from a performance standpoint, and maybe even from a recruitment standpoint, is to punish those mistakes, errors, and be ruthless in the opportunities and find players who are more ruthless in those defining moments of games, because it will make all of our lives so much less stressful. And imagine if you have a 2-0 lead, so much easier to integrate youth into that kind of a situation than when it's 2-1 or 1-0. And we saw the stats board. Big chances, expected goals, they were there for the taking. And Villa did not take them. I've outlined the two beautiful chances that John McGinn set on a platter, but there was probably one that was even a better opportunity than those two. I almost wonder if Ollie Watkins had a flashback back to the Brighton game when he took the ball on and scored the game winner with Leon Bailey standing wide open to his right. It would have been an easy ball, and he decided to take the responsibility. Well, here, same thing, 53rd minute. Matt Cash is wide open to his right, and he decides to go it alone. And in the video analysis review of that moment, I can't help but feel that the manager won't be happy with that decision. However, you also wonder if Watkins maybe just didn't trust Matt Cash with that moment either, because Cashy had a lot of chances in that game to create a dangerous ball, and he kind of squandered all of them. And the number one big issue or moment from Villa 2, Leicester 1, King Konsa. I've said it on this show numerous times. Ezri Konsa is developing into an elite center back in this league, and he is now surely, squarely on the radar of Gareth Southgate at England. But in order to be an ever-present for his country, he must do better in the opposing penalty area. And off the top of my head, I can recall 5 glorious moments this season already where he was in the right position but could not direct the header on target. Heck, he even alluded to one after the game against Leicester that he should have done better on against Manchester City. If he gets that part right, oh boy. So to get on the end of and steer home the John McGinn corner for the game-winning goal would have been huge for Ezri Konsa's confidence and belief, especially with Gareth Southgate sitting in the crowd next to Christian Purslow watching on. And I'm sure the technical staff would have said to Ezri, listen, to be a more effective player, to elevate your game, you got to do better in the opposing penalty area. And on the 1-1 goal, well, okay, if he had worn his shorter studs, it would have been Emi Buendia's second goal for Aston Villa. But still, he was in the right position to either get a rebound or cause problems. So good on him, because an effective Ezri Konsa in both penalty areas is going to be huge for Aston Villa for years to come, unless, of course, somebody comes in for him for 50 million pounds. And a couple of changes on our updatable subcategories that we've been following throughout the season, including the record at Villa Park, which improves now to 13 points from a possible 24. But Villa lost a VAR decision on the one-handed control, bringing them to +1 on the year. Both goal set pieces. The first one never left the penalty area after the initial free kick, so call it a second phase or not, Austin McPhee has helped Aston Villa to a +2 on the set pieces, and right now at this moment, very un-Leicester-like team. Definitely not a top 6 side. And now the Steven Gerrard back to Liverpool and Anfield circus can officially begin, which is actually great for the players. There'll be no emphasis, pressure, or any scrutiny on them. It'll all be about Stevie G this coming Saturday. And, Aston Villa have thrown up a couple of good results at Anfield over the years. I think back to the Benteke Weimann years. Last year, they only lost it late after the 7-2 win at home. They've always been able to surprise you. You think, and they're going to battle for their manager because they're going to know what it means to them. So buckle up and look out. Let's get ready for it. Until then, be well, be festive, and up the mighty Villa.